Hey guys, welcome back to Horse 2 Cinema. And today I have a new series that I'm starting for you guys. Something I've been thinking about doing for a while. It's something I do on my Instagram stories. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. But every month I compile a list of all of the movies that have been first-time watches for me that month, and I rank them, and then I'll reduce it down to 10 for my 10 favorites, and then I'll post that on my story. And I review all the movies I watch on my Letterboxd and post those reviews on my stories and whatnot. But I do think that I haven't been able to, get some of that information on the channel as much as I maybe should be. So I think this would be a good way. I can just kind of go through this list and just kind of freestyle on what I like about these movies with you guys. And for this one, of course, it's early June now, so we're going to be covering the month of May 2026. So at number 10 for this month, we have a relatively new film. I believe this came out last year. It's called Splitsville. This is directed by Michael Angelo Covino, who also stars or co-stars in the film, I should say. And it's about a married couple who are on a road trip together, and they have a bit of a falling out where they have this near-death experience, and it puts the wife into this state of clarity where she realizes that she wants a divorce. And as soon as she says that, he runs out of the car and into the forest, which is a fun little set piece. And he stumbles onto what we seemingly think is just some stranger's front lawn, but it's actually his friends that he was going to visit in the first place. So he starts to have a lot of conversations with them over this, weekend that he was going to spend time with them. And he discovers that their secret to happiness in their marriage is an open relationship, which he then sleeps with Dakota Johnson, and the movie turns into this kind of strange comedy of manners love triangle. I really like this one. Yeah, it's been a while for me since I've seen something with Dakota Johnson that I really liked, and I think in general I was just excited to see a rom-com that was funny, that had interesting ideas about relationships and the way that people change, the boundaries that people set within relationships, and how that affects everything. I think at times the film does struggle a little bit to have kind of the fully drawn, well-defined characters that I think it needs. I think sometimes it relies a little bit too much on archetypes. But again, it was really funny and honestly kind of sad at times, and it got me emotionally involved where I didn't necessarily expect to be. I really wish I had seen this in theaters last year, honestly. Definitely went under the radar. I would give this movie a high 3 stars. A lot of the movies that are lower on my top 10 list are usually in that range. But yeah, that's a strong recommend for me. The next one is a movie called Apex, which is directed by, let me see if I get this right, Balthazar Kormákur. Icelandic is the worst language to try and pronounce. Yeah, this guy's an interesting director. He made that movie Everest from 10 years ago, something like that. It's not the masterpiece of the novel that it's based off of, but it's pretty good survival thriller. And then he's also made I think he made that movie Beast with Idris Elba, which I haven't seen yet. And then the other movies I've seen from him have been kind of underwhelming, particularly anytime he works with Mark Wahlberg in what looks like a dad thriller. Not good. But this one follows Charlize Theron, who at the beginning of the movie is on a climbing expedition with her husband, and they get into some really bad weather, and her husband ends up falling to his death. And then we pick up with her months or years later, or however long it is, where she's on her own doing some kind of adventuring in Australia, where she's clearly trying to grieve and learn how to do this outdoor stuff. And one day when she's at a gas station, she bumps into these kind of weird Australian locals who I think one of them is hitting on her a little bit, and they're just in general they're coming on to her because they're treating her like she doesn't know what she's doing. And she ends up coming into contact with these people again, and this turns much more into a very twisted, dark sort of cat and mouse thriller where she's trying to survive these locals. When I first saw that poster for this, I gotta say I agreed with I think the common perception that this is just Netflix slop. I recommend you seriously just watch it. I promise you it is not Netflix slop. I think this filmmaker is pretty sturdy when it comes to directing action set pieces for the most part. He has a good sense of geography. He knows how to shoot on location for the most part, which you see a mix of in some of his movies. Like Everest is a little bit more a little bit less location work in that one, but in this, yeah, they're clearly out in the Australian bush or somewhere similar to it, and there's lots of cool stunt work and tense kind of thriller set pieces that I thought worked really well. It helps too that there's two really good movie stars in it. I really like Taron Egerton as the villain. Kind of I think he ends up playing this like super twisted character really well. And Charlize Theron's always a really good sort of A-list movie star lead. And I think she just kind of has the athleticism as well to really carry a role like this and make it believable. So I would also give this one a strong 3 stars. It's nothing amazing, but for like kind of the what we used to just seeing all this like Netflix like throwaway slop. Yeah, it's not that. It's pretty solid. So I would recommend checking it out if you're just looking for a good survival thriller. My next one is a recent theatrical watch that I really enjoyed, which was the film I Love Boosters, directed by Boots Riley. As the title suggests, this follows a group of boosters, which are people who steal clothes and sell them secondhand. It's played by Keke Palmer, Naomi Ackie, Taylor Page, and others who are have this rivalry with this sort of fashion mogul played by Demi Moore. And the film sort of morphs into both kind of a heist thriller as well as this much more weird, surreal Boots Riley sort of satire of the fashion industry and capitalism more broadly. I caught up with Boots Riley's film Sorry to Bother You literally right before I went to see this, so I'm pretty new to the guy. I feel pretty similarly about these two films where I think they have great concepts. I think they have overall pretty good senses of satire and really good sense of world building. Like I don't know, sometimes you'll watch surreal filmmakers and it just doesn't feel very authentic. It feels like they're trying to be like weird for the sake of being weird, or they're very derivative of other people. Boots Riley really feels like his own. Like he creates his own worlds and he's very confident in them. And he has a really good sense of humor as well. There's just so many, great little lines like satirical dialogue, and then there's also just a lot of bizarre shit. And that was an issue I had a little bit with Sorry to Bother You, is just that like some of the bizarre shit was just a little too far for me in terms of seeing how it connected to the main themes of the movie and everything. This one I kind of thought it worked together a little bit better. But one criticism I have of both movies too is that like they're very damning in their satire of the world that they're trying to critique. In Sorry to Bother You's case, it's more about it's like telemarketing and that kind of like scammer capitalism, I guess. And then in this one, they're very much trying to critique like the exploitative nature of the fashion industry and kind of the superficiality behind it and everything. And I think in both films, they kind of both have these weirdly happy endings, and especially in this one, like where all the characters, not too spoilers, but there's like a point where a bunch of characters just decide to work together where you're like, wait a minute, what? This just feels a little too easy for how otherwise really well I think you've satirized this world. But I think I've settled on the fact that I'm always going to be in the seat when Boots Riley is making a new movie. If for nothing else, just that there aren't a lot of filmmakers who are this confident about their weird visions that are able to make movies on pretty solid budgets with big stars in them, with like Demi Moore, Keke Palmer, etc. So another one I would give 3 stars, but maybe if I revisit it, I would like it even more. My number 7 film on the list is a film I've been wanting to watch for a while. It's a film I own, which is right out of this Shinya Tsukamoto Solid Metal Nightmares box set. And if I can get it out here, it is this one called Killing. So this is set during a very tumultuous period in mid-19th century Edo, Japan. And it's the story of a masterless samurai named Ikimatsu. It has a bit of a complex plot that I admit is a little hard to follow at times. So this is a bit of a later film for Shinya Tsukamoto. Tetsuo the Iron Man, a lot of films he's most known for. He did kind of in the 80s, 90s, or maybe even early 2000s. But this actually came out in 2018 and was sort of him going back to the festival circuit and doing things on a pretty small budget. But for that budget, it's pretty impressive. I can't really think of any other movies I've seen where Edo, Japan is done with the kind of some of the period detail that you would expect of like a grand Kurosawa movie, but it's done in this because I think it's lower budget, it's done on like this very digital style, and so you've never really seen characters move like that in a especially the fighting sequences. It's all very unique looking for a movie of that period. In addition to that style, I also thought that the gore effects that it used kind of throughout the film were really interesting. Also not something you normally see in a lot of these samurai films, because a lot of them were in the golden age of Japanese cinema, where the films weren't really that violent. But yeah, you really get to see like the bodily consequences of this conflict, where you do feel the pain, but at the same time it's also exaggerated. A lot of the blood is kind of done almost in this like Kill Bill style, where there's like jets of blood going out and everything. And you can tell that Tsukamoto was very much in a bleak state of mind when he made this movie, very much fearful of the conflicts of our own time. If you read about the film a little bit, enjoyed this one. I could see it being a little alienating for people who aren't used to Tsukamoto. Like if you haven't seen any of his other films, I would recommend watching some of those beforehand. But if you do like Tsukamoto, I think this is a fun one. I really enjoyed it. I'd give this one a light 4 stars. I'm on a bit of a Western kick lately. I actually just watched a film today that I probably will be covering in next month's video. But I've got 2 Westerns that I watched last month to cover for you guys today. And this first one is called The Big Gun Down, which is directed by Sergio Solima. This movie is about a bounty hunter named John Corbett who hunts down Cuchillo Sanchez, who is a Mexican peasant that has been accused of a horrendous crime that, in case I ever have monetization on my channel, I'm going to avoid saying right now. But it's a crime committed against a 12-year-old girl. I don't have a ton to say about this one. I mean, so for one, I watched it on YouTube, and I just got to say, there are so many great genre films on YouTube, from Italian giallos, spaghetti westerns, just kind of obscure horror movies in general. YouTube is such a great place to find movies. But yeah, this was one I found on there, and I just thought it was a really cool stylistic spaghetti western, really good influence on landscapes, and it has a pretty fantastic score by Ennio Morricone. I wouldn't say it's like a career highlight for him, but it had themes that I remembered. I really liked the lead performances as well, especially from Lee Van Cleef. I think he gives this character, this bounty hunter, a lot of depth, a lot of iciness, which contrasts interestingly with where the story goes, because not to spoil anything too much, but you do learn some things about the character, the Mexican bandit that he's hunting, that sort of kind of destroys the premise of the film and changes the film into something that is more about learning to see yourself in other people that might otherwise be your adversaries. And as far as the directing, it's not a Leone or a Corbucci spaghetti western, but it's really sturdy. I think it's paced pretty well for the most part. So I'd also give this one a pretty solid 4 stars. Next, we've got a little bit more of a modern film on this list, which is Michael Clayton, directed by Tony Gilroy. This film is about a law firm that brings in George Clooney's Michael Clayton as its fixer to remedy a situation after a lawyer has a breakdown while representing a chemical company that he knows is guilty of a multi-billion-dollar class action lawsuit. So going into this, I've heard about it forever. I always thought this was going to be a little bit more of a political thriller than it ended up being. I don't know, I thought of it as more of a kind of like a modern throwback to some sort of 70s like political thrillers. And I guess there's a little bit of that in there in terms of investigating and wanting to get to the truth and, finding, justice between these characters. But I don't know. It was less overtly political to me. It is much more of like a court. It's not a courtroom drama in that it doesn't take place in a courtroom, but yeah, it's just much more interested in kind of dramatizing these legal details and making them very personal for these people. It's really well acted across the board, from George Clooney, of course, to Tom Wilkinson. Sidney Pollack's in it. Tilda Swinton is in it quite a bit, and she's really fantastic, especially by the end of the movie. There's one bit of dialogue in particular that's essentially like the climax of the film when Tilda Swinton's character is confronted by George Clooney. And I think it is one of the most satisfying bits of dialogue, like that exchange I've ever seen in any movie. So yeah, this has been hyped to me for years, but I gotta say it mostly lived up to it. I really, really enjoyed this one. Also would give it a strong 4 out of 5. So for my number 4, a little bit of a story time here. So I went recently to one of my local Alamo draft houses, which was doing a double feature of 2 Pam Grier movies, Jackie Brown and Foxy Brown. Jackie Brown I had seen before, and obviously it's one of my favorites. Probably is my favorite Tarantino movie at this point. But Foxy Brown I had never seen before, and they were doing both movies as a double feature on 35mm. And Pam Grier was actually there. She's from the Denver area originally, and they named the movie theater after her. So she was there for a Q&A, and it was really cool to see her in person. But the first time watch for me was Foxy Brown, directed by Jack Hill, and it's one of these like classic Pam Grier centered blaxploitation movies from the 70s. And she plays a character who has a boyfriend that is very strangely murdered in the early section of the film. And she responds to this by teaming up with some people where she has this role as a high class escort essentially that and then she uses that role to get revenge on the people that murdered her boyfriend. And it's really fun. It's exactly what you want from this kind of Pam Grier action film. It's similar to Coffee. I found Coffee a little bit more abrasive, which I really like. But this one is still just as fun. It's it's Pam Grier kicking ass and like saying incredibly sassy things to people while she's doing so for the runtime. And it's pretty nippy. I think it's like 80 minutes or so. It's something really short for the most part. I don't know how much more I can say about this one. It's just super fun to watch with a crowd. Super fun, I would imagine, to watch at home with a group of friends. Pam Grier's a legend. Blaxploitation's great. Would give this one a solid 4 stars as well. Number 3 on my list is going to be another Western. This one is I've been wanting to dig into more Sergio Corbucci films. I'd only seen Django and The Great Silence for the longest time. So I finally watched The Mercenary, which is another one I believe that's on YouTube. Why are all these movies available for free on YouTube? I don't know, but I'm very happy they are. This film uses a device where we see the lead character Paco, this Mexican revolutionary, in this town working for a circus, and then the rest of the film is sort of in flashback structure, where it's sort of telling the story of his revolutionary escapades alongside Kowalski, played by Franco Nero. So the first thing I came away from with this movie was for Sergio Corbucci, who is known as like the bleakest Western filmmaker, at least the bleakest spaghetti Western filmmaker, this is pretty upbeat for the most part. This is another one kind of like The Big Gun Down, where it's kind of like a story of friendship a little bit. It's a good like bro Western, because the drama of this movie is kind of how these two characters, Paco and Kowalski, who are so different in so many ways. They come from different parts of the world. They have different roles within the world. They sort of start to understand each other and kind of become friends throughout. I think early in the movie they kind of have to hate each other because Paco is this Mexican revolutionary and Kowalski is this bounty hunter, and that's just based on pure archetype. But then throughout the film we get to see all these subtleties, these other character details that sort of break down those archetypes. Paco, I think, starts to really see the day-to-day skill that Kowalski has as a bounty hunter, and he starts to appreciate that skill beyond just the archetype of him being a lawman and into something that's more useful, more tangible in the world, something he respects a little bit more. Whereas and then for Kowalski, he sees Paco, and I think at the start of the film he sees him as this kind of revolutionary idealist with his head in the clouds. And then he does start to get attached to the movement. He's just very impressed by how much of a man of conviction Paco is. He sees the intrinsic value of dedicating your life to the cause. And also, just like The Big Gun Down, it's got really good set pieces, really good sort of vista shots, and coincidentally another really good Ennio Morricone score. The man did the score for like hundreds of movies, westerns in particular. And in these action set pieces, there's often a lot of like really funny details where characters start like hitting each other with farm animals and stuff like that. So it's just kind of a bizarre Western, pretty humorous, and which is again not what you'd expect for Sergio Corbucci. So I thought this was a breath of fresh air. I think Corbucci's a master, but it was fun to see him not in so much in bleak mode and do something a little bit more fun. So this is a very solid 4 stars for me. Speaking of fun movies, my number 2 is Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark. I was on a Western kick. I was on a fun movies kick when one day I was hanging out with my friend Elle, and she was like, hey, we're going to watch Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark now because I want to, and you need to see it. And oh my God, my day was ruined. I did actually think it was going to be even bleaker than it ended up being. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's bleak movie, but I found a lot of humanity in this film. If you don't know, this film stars Bjork, where she plays a woman who works in a factory who is slowly going blind. And she makes some decisions that I don't know if I'll spoil too much of what she does, but she gets herself into some legal trouble, and it kind of dramatizes that downfall, and and it's incredibly sad as you watch this character who's suffering from blindness, sort of start to accept her fate. Stylistically, it's a really interesting step for Von Trier. It's a musical, if you don't know, and it's honestly a pretty damn good one. I am one to complain about a lot of modern day musicals, and that for me they're just a little too flashy and music video-y, and they don't really understand what makes a lot of the older musicals, like those in the 50s, such great vehicles for spectacle. This one is interestingly shot on mostly like kind of VHS or like kind of early digital cameras, and so the picture quality isn't great, but what they actually do with like the staging and like these grand dance set pieces in these factories that are like very surreal moments where she's trying to enjoy life and savor bits where she can still see. It's even though it's shot on like pretty shitty like digital cameras, it looks really good because the staging of all of these dancers is just fantastic. I think a lot of why this movie works is just Bjork's performance is so good. I know there's a little bit of drama about like the Lars von Trier maybe didn't treat her the best on set during this movie, and that's part of why she hasn't really acted since, beyond her cameo in The Northman. But I don't know. I mean, whatever happened, I think she's channeling just such a raw emotional performance in this. And then the ending is just one of the bleakest like gut punches ever. And it's not. I think sometimes this movie and Lars von Trier in general get accused of being like shock porn. It's not, because I think you genuinely care about the characters, and the whole reason it's sad is because you care about them. It's because the film has built up enough of humanity that it's horrifying and such a gut punch when you finally get to the conclusion. But I don't know, for how interesting of a pastiche this is, and just for Bjork's performance and that gut punch of an ending, this was pretty close to 5 stars for me. I'm gonna give it a 4, but man, it's close. And finally, my number 1, my favorite first time watch of May 2026. I've been talking a lot about these like foreign art films and these like historically important pieces of work, which is why it's very fitting to, cap off the list with Jackass number 2. I don't know if this will be for all my viewers, but I love Jackass, and for years though, I've only seen the first one, and I've seen lots of clips of the other movies and stuff like that. But with the new one coming out this year, I've been really wanting to go ahead and binge all of them, and I had heard for a long time that the second one is the best. It's kind of the grossest. It's the most maximalist Jackass film. And yep, I was not disappointed. There is just something so universally funny about physical comedy. I really do think that the Jackass guys at their hearts are influenced by like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, etc. But they're just doing it in what is a more vulgar, like modern version of it for our generation, or I guess many generations. There's a timeless quality to cock and ball torture. Everyone loves to sit in the theater with the family and watch a guy put a fish hook through his cheek, get in the water, and have the sharks come swim up to him. And what's interesting and what makes me excited to kind of watch the other Jackass movies is that, I know with some of the recent ones like Jackass Forever, with some of the emotional stuff that's happened around like the real cast and things like that, it's really become like a story of friendship, and that one I know like really emphasized it. And it's funny just to watch these older ones because, like, while you can see the outlines of friendship, of course, man, do these people just like put each other through the worst shit you can imagine. But maybe that's part of it. Maybe that shared suffering is what makes them such good friends. But my God, there is so much stuff in here that I just, probably cannot say on YouTube. If you haven't seen Jackass number 2, I highly recommend it. This was, again, with all these like great genre films, art films I watched this month, this is my favorite thing I've seen the whole month. It was fantastic. 5 stars. Absolutely. So yeah, those are my 10 favorite first time watches of this month. It was really fun to kind of kick this off as a series, and I'll be coming back to it every month from now on. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, you can like it down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I've got more videos coming soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.